Hello. Today I'm going to be doing a review, I guess, of The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Yeah. So yeah. Basically, I just finished this book like 2 days ago. And I've been wanting to talk about it because I love this series and I haven't, made a video about it or talked about it at all. And so I kind of want to do, I'm not going to talk too much about the first 3 books, but I will give you a little bit of explanation just because I haven't ever talked about them. And then I'm going to really get into this book because I really liked it. And here's the thing, I don't remember the first 3 books that well. I remember them, but as for like if this is my favorite or if one of those is my favorite, like I don't really know. I just love the whole series, so that's what I have to say. So basically, I'm going to talk about the first 3 books because this is the 4th book in the series that just came out in August. I'm going to talk about the first 3 books. I'm going to talk about this book, and I'm going to split up how I talk about this book, but I'll get to that in a second. So first I'm going to start with talking about, should I bring out, I have a copy of The Inheritance Games. I don't know where it is. Wait, hold on. I got it. I'll figure it out. Oh, it's like right at the bottom. Wait. Okay, that could not have gone worse. Like you're joking. The whole stack fell over. Okay, perfect. So this is literally at the bottom of the stack, but I got this book a few years ago and just like didn't read it. Like I had a bunch of books I got for Christmas one year that I just like never ended up reading. And so during Easter break this year, I read it and loved it so much. Like loved it. I like annotated it up and everything, and I loved it. And then I immediately got the second book from the library and then read that in literally a day. Like it was literally less than 24 hours. I read that whole book, which was this is The Inheritance Games. The other one's like the Hawthorne Legacy. That's what that is. And then the third one is The Final Gambit, which since I finished the second book in 24 hours, I didn't want to go all the way back to the library, so I just got an ebook of it, and so I read it that way, finished that in like 1 day or 2 days, I don't know. So essentially I read the series, or the first 3 books, really, really quickly, which is why I can't really differentiate them in my mind. I just know that I love them all. But I liked Final Gambit a little less. I guess I'll get into that now, because like comparing Hawthorne, or the Brothers Hawthorne, to the rest of them, I think would be fun. So basically, let me just get into it. So this book follows this girl named Avery Grams, who's this like, she's poor, her mom is dead, and her dad is like, who doesn't know where she doesn't know where he is. She lives with her half-sister, she lives with her half-sister Libby. Libby has like an abusive boyfriend, I can't talk. And they like live in this like bad house, and she sleeps in her car a lot, but she's like going to high school and all this stuff. She goes to school one day and she gets called into the office, and then Grayson Hawthorne is there. He's this like grandson of this rich dude named Tobias Hawthorne. And I can't remember if she knows who he is, but like people know who the Hawthornes are. They're like, I don't know what a good, like Elon Musk's family. I don't know. Like some like rich family kind of like that. They're like the Bidens. I don't know. But like people know who they are. But like she doesn't really, like, she's like, who is this guy? And he's essentially like, my grandfather just died, and in his will he said that you need to be there for the will reading. So we can't read the will until you come on down to Texas and sit in the room and we read the will. And she's like, whatever, okay. And so they all head down to Texas, and she's like really smart. She's like questioning this weird random rich family. She's like, if you've seen Knives Out, it's essentially Knives Out. Basically, she meets the whole Hawthorne family, essentially. There's, so it's like Tobias Hawthorne, who died, and then Zara and Sky, who are the 2 daughters, And Zara doesn't have any children, but she has a husband. She has like a stepdaughter named Tia or Thea. I don't know how to say it. She's really fun, but she comes in a little bit later. And then Sky has 4 sons, which are the brothers Hawthorne. 4 sons, from oldest to youngest. It's Nash, Grayson, Jameson, and Alexander. And so they're all there thinking that they're gonna get a bag from their grandfather's will. Also, I should say they all have different dads, which is a significant point in the story. And they all have different dads. And basically, I'm not gonna try to explain this book in super huge detail, but basically they read the will. Tobias gives like basically all of his inheritance to Avery, and he sends them on this huge like mystery hunt thing to figure out why Avery got all the money and not his grandsons. And it's this whole thing where like their entire lives their grandfather has set them up with these games that they need to solve, and every year he wants them to create something new, or like develop a new skill to be extraordinary. He's like crazy, but he wants his grandsons, who he's like, are gonna inherit his name and like all this stuff and whatever. He wants them to be great because they're Hawthorns and like all this stuff. So yeah, so that's basically like the first book. They all get sent on a on like a little riddle hunt, and they're in like this huge mansion, the Hawthorne house, which is like, it's so cool. Like, it's just like the scope of it all is so great. And so then in the second book, basically it's revealed that Toby Hawthorne, which is the dead son of Tobias Hawthorne, brother of Sky and Zara, uncle of the brothers Hawthorne, is not actually dead. Everyone thought he was dead. He's not. I actually can't remember. But it's this whole thing is like he's not dead. And they like go on another hunt. They go to figure that out. And then the final gambit. This is my least favorite of the books. Because they introduced a bunch of new characters like Vincent Blake and like all of those dudes, Sheffield Grayson, and like Eve, who's like the daughter of Tobias Hawthorne. She's like, I should be part of the Hawthorne family. I should have all the money and the inheritance and all that stuff. I should have grown up in the Hawthorne house. And she's really like angry about it. And they're basically trying to... There's just some mystery they're trying to solve in the final gambit. I don't remember what it is. But yeah. And that leads us to the brothers Hawthorne. So, yeah. One more important detail is that, as I said, the brothers all have different dads. And they find out in book 1, because like none of them know their dads in the first book. They find out... Whose do they find first? Is it Nash's? I think they find Nash's dad first, which it's either Nash or Grayson, but it would make more sense for it to be Nash. But they basically find this guy named Nash. What's his name, dude? Basically, his last name is Nash. I want to say Jason Nash, but that's the YouTuber. Is his name Jason Nash? I don't know. But then that's when they connect the dots that all of their dads' last names became their first names. So like, even though they'd never met their dads, like Nash's dad's last name was Nash. Alexander's last name was Alexander, Isaiah Alexander. Grayson's dad's name was Sheffield Grayson. Jameson's dad's name was Ian Jameson. So like, it was this little hint to who their dads were. And so I don't remember which one happened, but like through the first 3 books, I'm pretty sure in the first one we find out who Nash's dad is, in the second one we find out Alexander's dad. The third one, I don't remember. The third one we find out Grayson's dad. Basically, we know the 3 of their dads. And so in this book, I was like, ooh, are we gonna find out who Jameson's dad is? And we did. So that's another thing that is added in this book. That's just kind of a continuation of the other books. Other than that, it's pretty much independent from the other books, other than the fact that Grayson's dad is dead and is a piece of trash. Because he was in like the third book and he was like causing all these problems and stuff, but he ended up dying. And so that's basically all the exposition you need. So as for the plot of this book itself, it's kind of split into two. It's split into Jameson's POV and Grayson's POV. And I'm going to start off by explaining Jameson's just because oh my god, I had a burp. I really, really loved Grayson's part of the book specifically, and so I want to talk about that last, but I'll start with Jameson's. So basically, the book pretty much starts with, oh, by the way, I should mention, Jameson and Avery Grams, who was the girl that got all the inheritance, are dating. They've been dating since book 1, pretty much, or book 2, I don't know. They've basically been together since the beginning. And so they're kind of a team through all of this, and it basically starts off with immediately with Jameson meeting his dad, Ian, and Ian is like, he basically introduces this whole thing about this secret society thing called the Devil's Mercy, and this game that is put on by the Devil's Mercy, that in winning this game, you win this huge like palace estate thing in Scotland called Vantage. That's what it's called, just Vantage. And it's apparently, it's like Ian, like it's like where Ian grew up and all this stuff. It's like in his family. And so Ian wants Jameson, his son, to go compete in this game and get in and do all this stuff. And then he's like, if you win, like, you know, you can give my house back to me, and then when I die, I'll pass it on to you. That kind of thing. So Jameson's big character thing is that he loves winning. He does not lose. And that comes from, you know, like his grandfather, like, really pushing that in him as a kid. And so basically, him and Avery for the whole book are essentially, first of all, they're trying to get into the Devil's Mercy Club. It's like this rich society for all the rich people in England. And they're like, how do we get into this high-ranking British society as like 2 American teenagers? It's all very interesting. And then eventually there's like some really shady people, but they're like getting in, they're like starting to talk, and then they get in, and it's like this underground like cavern, and they have to go on a boat underground to get to the Devil's Mercy. Like, that's weird. And then they go in and it's a bunch of like poker tables and like different games and stuff. It's like all very like crazy and like Illuminati vibe. Eventually they get into the game, they talk to the proprietor? Is that proprietor? I don't know how to say it, I don't know. But he's like the one, or is it a factotum? I think it's the proprietor. He's the one who like runs the whole club basically, and he sends out the personal invites for the game, and he only invites like 5 people. And so like this whole time they're trying to get his attention, they're doing all this crazy stuff. And they eventually end up getting in, and the price for getting in the game, for some of them, not all of them, is that they have to leave a secret. Like a secret that like if it got out it would ruin them kind of thing, and that's like their price to pay for the game. But only 2 of the competitors actually have to put a secret in, Jameson and Viscount Bradford or something, his name, who is actually Jameson's uncle because it's Ian's brother. So that's fun. But Jameson leaves a secret, and for the whole book the reader doesn't know what the secret is. And it's like, oh my god, like, because it's this whole thing that he doesn't want anyone to find out his secret, he doesn't want Avery to know his secret, this whole thing. And so we're like, what's the secret? It's something that he found out in Prague, that's all he says. And so that's a little added thing. Then basically they go in the game, and it's like this whole, again, just a lot of riddles, they're figuring it out, it's really fun to read. They're in the castle, and they're basically hunting for keys. So there's 3 keys, 3 boxes. One has, you know, like if you unlock it you win Vantage and everything, and then one has Bradford's secret, one has Jameson's secret. And so basically thing leads to thing, and they end up winning. So Jameson wins it, and he eventually in the end is like, I won this for myself, I don't want to give this up to my dad just so he can give it back to me, because Jameson's whole life there's so many flashbacks in this book. It's so good because it's like looking back on his childhood, how his grandfather was always like telling him he was ordinary compared to his brothers and all this stuff. How like Xander is like a literal like genius, like inventor, like thinker like that. Nash has always just been doing his own thing. He hasn't ever really valued the Hawthorne name, and so he's just like kind of off on his own. Grayson's just like smart. He's gonna be the heir, like he's all this stuff, and Jameson's just kind of like there. And so he was like, I just want something for myself, and so he won Vantage. And this is like literally like way at the end of the book, but Jameson eventually is talking to Avery. And she had the opportunity at one point to read his secret, but she didn't because he was like, if you read it, you're going to be in like danger and all this stuff. And so she just burned it. She trusted him and she just like burned it in a candle. And it was so cute. But then eventually in the end, he does tell her the secret anyway. And the secret, which literally like shook me, I like screamed, is that Alice Hawthorne is alive. And Alice Hawthorne is his grandmother, Tobias Hawthorne's wife, who had supposedly been dead for like years. Like years and years and years. Like we had never in any of the books met Alice Hawthorne. She was just kind of like mentioned as like she's just the grandmother. And it was always like, oh, she's like the best. Like everyone loves Alice. But yeah. I don't remember. Is Nan? What's her? There's like the great grandma. But I don't. Is she Alice's mom? I think she's Alice's mom, not Tobias's. I don't remember. But it's revealed in the end that his secret this whole time is that he found out that his grandmother's alive. And so that's probably going to lead us into whatever book 5 is. So yeah. That's Jameson's whole thing. It's very cool, and it had all the fun, like, inheritance games type little, like, riddles and traps and all that stuff, and so that was really fun. But the half of this book that I specifically loved and is, like, my favorite, the whole reason that I'm like, is this my favorite book in the series, is because of Grayson's chapters in this book, which it's not necessarily, like, riddles and mysteries as much. It's just like characters that I just love. So basically Grayson, so it's kind of a continuation of what happened in book 3 where Grayson's dad dies, and Grayson's dad, Sheffield Grayson, also like did a bunch of illegal stuff that he tried to kill Avery. First of all, he tried to bomb her, and then just like that's the main thing, a bunch of other like really sus stuff. And so Grayson, I don't remember if he finds it out or if he just like has known that Sheffield Grayson, obviously, like, you know, Sheffield Grayson had an affair with Skye Hawthorne at like 20 years ago, which resulted in Grayson. But since then, he has a family, like a family that does not involve Grayson, who is Alicia, what's her name? Acacia? The mother, and then 2 daughters, 2 twins, named Gigi and Savannah. And basically Grayson is like, I need to get in there and I need to make sure that whatever he like left to his daughters or whatever, like all of it, he needs to basically just like clean up some loose ends to protect his sisters, make sure that their family doesn't get in any legal trouble because of what their dad did, and make sure that they're like taken care of financially because like he's dead. And it's this whole thing that like Acacia knows, Alicia, I don't know what her name is, but Gigi and Savannah don't know that their dad is dead. And so that, it basically just brings in this whole thing. So Grayson goes up and he starts talking to Gigi, and Gigi is such a good character. Because I was nervous because when they introduced Eve in the last book, I was like, we cannot do another Eve. I do not like Eve. I'm so sorry. But Gigi is so fun. She's so much like Alexander, which is so interesting. She's just very like brain is going a million miles a minute, and it's really fun to read, especially like in contrast with Grayson, because them being like half siblings obviously, but she doesn't know that either. She doesn't know who this kid is. He's like, my name's Grayson, and she's like, oh yeah, right, because like her last name is Grayson, so she thinks he's making it up and all this stuff. And so basically he's like, I'm gonna help you find your dad or whatever, because, oh wait, okay, so it starts with her in jail. She goes to jail because she tried to break into the bank vault that was like left to her from her dad, but she like didn't have the right clearances or whatever to get in. And so he goes and picks her up from jail. That's how it starts. And then all this stuff happens where she wants to know where her dad is. She wants to know like what's in this vault, like all this stuff. She doesn't know he's dead. She doesn't know all this bad stuff that he's done. So Grayson's trying to figure it out, but also protect her from it. And so he's like lying to her because he's like making fake keys to get into the vault, but like so she can't get into the vault and like all this stuff. He's switching passwords around, and it's all very interesting because like slowly he's like very much trying to be like no contact. Like he doesn't want to get attached to this girl even though she's like his half-sister. But inevitably he obviously ends up getting attached. But then there's Gigi's twin named Savannah, who is in the book less than Gigi is, but it's really interesting when Savannah's in it because Savannah, like immediately when Grayson sees her for the first time, she is like really, really like spookily similar to Grayson, and it kind of just makes everything more real of like them being family and all this stuff. She acts very much like Grayson, like very like serious and like not joking around. And she looks a lot like Grayson as well, which like he says specifically when he sees Savannah that she looks a lot like him, but I'm like, aren't they twins? Don't they look the same? I don't know. But she has like his eyes and his hair, like his blonde hair, and so he's like, ooh, that's a little too close. But Savannah very much like sees through him, and she also is aware that her father had an affair that resulted in Grace and Hawthorne. And so she like knows like some of the stuff that her dad's done. And yeah. So that's mainly what his part of the book is about. They're kind of like uncovering all this stuff that Sheffield Grayson has done while trying to like protect the girls from it and all this stuff. And eventually in the end of the book, Nash and Xander aren't in this book a lot, but they're in the beginning a little bit, and then through the middle towards the end they're in Grayson's chapters, because they're essentially helping him in this whole ploy to like figure this out and like, you know, keep the girls under control and keep them safe and all this stuff, but also kind of like keep it down low, like don't tell them too much about what happened. And while this is happening, Eve, who I mentioned, she is like sending like, what's the word? Spies, I guess is the word we could use. She's essentially kind of sending spies after them to just kind of like watch them, to watch Grayson and watch the girls and see what's going on, which is like really weird. So yeah, basically that's pretty much what they do. And so there's just a lot of funny moments between like Grayson and his half-sisters and his brothers and like all this stuff. And there was like something I really wanted to say. I don't know, it's just there's so many interesting like flashback chapters in this book, and seeing like Grayson, who's always so serious and like dedicated to his family, I guess, seeing him like embrace his half-sisters was just really cute. Let's move to a random page. Oh, okay, I remember now. In the beginning of the book, Nash, well, it's not really shown, but he kind of just tells his brothers that he proposes to Libby, who I mentioned from the first book is Avery's half-sister. So he's proposing to Libby, and it's this whole thing where his grandma, or his great-grandma, gave him this like family heirloom ring to propose with, but he had already bought a ring and already proposed. And so he had this ring, and he, in the very beginning of the book, he gives it to Grayson and is like, here, this is for you. And he says this thing, he says, why not you? Because, or I guess Grayson is like, he doesn't know why he's giving him the ring. And so he's like, why me? And Ash says, why not you? Because throughout the books, Grayson, there was like a little bit of a love triangle between Avery, Jameson, and Grayson, but it was sort of squashed at the end of the third book. And so now Jameson and Avery are very much together. Grayson has accepted that, but like every once in a while, he's still very protective of Avery. But before Avery, there's this girl named Emily who, when she also was in like a love trial thing with Grayson and Jameson, and she ended up dying because she was hanging out with them and like fell off a cliff or something. I'm so sorry. And so basically he has this idea that like he needs to just be focused on the family and like not let himself get too attached to people because they always end up leaving one way or another. And so through this book, with him like, you know, becoming closer with his half-sisters and everything like that, he sort of, sorry, I was like froze. He sort of like learns, is there a dog in my house? Like, what's happening? Anyway, he sort of like learns how to connect with people and like how to like let people in. And like, are you for real? Is there a ghost in my house, or am I tripping? I think I'm tripping. Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Sorry, I just had to make sure there's no demons in my house. But what, like, literally, what was I saying? Basically, by the end of the book, Grayson's like, I can find happiness too. That's all I have to say. I'm just trying to look. I need to look for the Grayson chapters. I don't remember how Grayson's part ends. Blah, blah, blah. So basically, they find this, journal from Sheffield Grayson that basically displays all the stuff that he did. And so Grayson ends up like making a copy of it, and then he leaves out the really like incriminating stuff, and he like gives it back to his sisters because he's like, oh, this will like make them feel like they got some closure, but like not give them the whole truth. And they're trying to figure out what's happening. But then, like, Gigi ends up figuring it out, and she's like, no. And then she gets all mad, but then she immediately comes back because she's Gigi, and she's, like, chill like that. And so she just, like, asks for the truth, and then he tells her all the stuff about what her father did. And it's this whole thing of, like, Gigi's finally being, like, the mature sister, and she's like, I'm gonna keep this from Savannah, because Savannah kept that whole thing about knowing that her dad had an affair and this whole thing. So yeah, basically at the end of the book, there's this whole thing with this dude named Kent Trowbridge, who had been in the whole book, but he was just kind of like a vague background character. He was essentially trying to steal the the Graysons, like the sisters, that family, steal their money and inheritance and whatnot. So yeah. And then basically the book ends, and I swear to God, like, I don't know if I'm like making stuff up. I literally can't remember. I feel like the end of the last book was the same exact end as this, but it was in Eve's POV. Basically, at the end, Avery goes on like national television and is like, we're gonna start doing these games, these like nationwide, like these like Tobias Hawthorne, like Hawthorne games, to win like insane amount of money just for fun. Which I'm pretty sure she said this at the end of the first, or not the first book, the end of the third book. and like announce that. But at the end of this book, it's an Eve's POV where she's like watching the TV and she sees it. And so, oh my gosh. Anyway, sorry, I'm reading the book. And so she basically, we see from Eve's POV, Eve is mad. She's like, whatever. And so it basically ends the little cliffhanger of Eve being like, I want to join the game. So Eve's coming back for book 5. I'm so happy for her. This is the last quote. So like, Eve imagined herself back at the chessboard across from Avery. No one is letting me win this time, she thought. Avery had her game now, and Eve had hers. So yeah. Eve's just doing some evil stuff. So 5th book is basically going to be about this. It's called The Grandest Game. That's what the 5th book is going to be called. And it's probably going to be about this game that they're putting all across America, which, like, I don't know how that's going to work, but some weird people are going to be drawn into it, and Eve is probably going to be there as well. So that's sort of my roundup of the Hawthorne brothers, and then also kind of just the whole Inheritance Game series up until this point. I really love it. It's really good. If you like fast-paced books and like books that read like movies, these books are for you. They're very good. They're very quick. Yeah, love it.